Yo, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today I actually have a review of a Forex broker that I've been trading with for actually since I started trading. It was the first broker I ever signed up with, and I've kind of just stuck with them ever since until recently. I did actually switch. Well, no, actually I use two now. I didn't completely switch. But that broker is Oanda or Oanda. I never really knew how to pronounce it. We're going to go with Oanda for this video. And it's a U.S. regulated broker, one of the only ones. There's very few U.S. regulated Forex brokers, so they're pretty big. But they do have some drawbacks. So in this video, we're going to be talking about some pros and cons of using this broker from someone who's used it for like 2 years now or something. So before we jump into that, I do want to say, if you haven't already, do hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video. And if you gain any value from this video, do give it a thumbs up, because that really does help the YouTube algorithm. So let's start off talking about just the basics of sort of the platform. So they actually have some restrictions because they're US regulated. They can't do everything that an unregulated broker would do, which is good and bad, right? The good is it's part of your money is insured by the US government. And I'm not quite sure which other countries you can use Oanda with. Obviously, I know it works in the United States. I'm not too familiar with, which countries are allowed to trade with them. You're gonna have to look into that. For sure, US, good to go. Now, a couple drawbacks because they're regulated is the fact you can't trade everything. I'm gonna be getting into a more detailed pros and cons list, but I just want to say they're regulated. So your money's safe, but there's restrictions because of the US laws, like amount of leverage you can use and what type of assets you can trade. So you are sort of restricted there. But if you are just trading currencies, you can trade every currency pair, so that's not a big deal. It's more so for the people that want to trade, indices and commodities and, gold and US 30 and stuff like that. But for just currencies, you can trade, whatever you want. Now, I just want to say this. I really love this broker. I think, they do a lot of things well. They're not super sketchy. I've never really had too many problems with my... So a little bit more about them before we get into the actual review is they have headquarters all around. You can speak to people on the phone if you have a problem. So their customer service is pretty good. There's actually a headquarters about an hour away from me in San Francisco, which is nice. But so yeah, they've been around a long time. They also deal with other clients. They're not just a Forex broker. They work with companies to help with their currency trading. Not necessarily trading, but, foreign business transactions, stuff like that. So they're a pretty big company. So now that you have sort of a background, let's jump right into the actual review. What do I think about this broker? So my first thoughts here is they're a great broker, right? I've been with them for 2 years. I don't have too many complaints. It's more just a matter of preference, not necessarily a matter of are they good, because they are a really good broker. I've never had really any problems with, being my stop loss being triggered when it shouldn't have, or I don't know, like other sketchy things. I've never had any sorts of problems like that. That could also be due to the fact I am a swing trader. I'm going to get into that a little bit later on in the video because I do think your trading style will affect whether you should use this broker or not. I'm a swing trader, so obviously my stops are pretty large, so that could also be part of the reason I haven't had too many problems with, stop hunts or anything like that. But with that being said, let's jump into the pros. So I give this broker probably 8 or 9 out of 10. Let's just say 8.5 out of 10, because they're pretty good, not too many complaints. So let's jump into the pros. What are the things I like about them? Number one, they're safe and reliable and regulated. You don't have to worry too much. They're not going to disappear with your money. If for whatever reason they did go bankrupt, your money's safe up to a certain amount of, I think it's at least like 100,000. Then your money's safe and insured by the U.S. government. So there's a lot of pros, right? Because unregulated brokers can sometimes be sketchy. Very rarely do they just disappear and take everyone's money, but it can happen. So that's nice knowing your money's pretty safe. So that's one pro. Number two is the fact that executions are good. Like I said, there's not much manipulation. You're getting in here, your stop loss here. For the most part, it's all going to be respected, right? You're not fighting with your broker over trades. You're just trading the market. So it's really nice in that regard. So yeah, really no complaints there. In terms of executions, it's pretty good. Third pro is, I already sort of mentioned this, their customer service is good. They're pretty exceptional when it comes to the Forex broker industry. Customer service is pretty rare. A lot of times you just email them and you might get wrote back, and it's just a very slow process. With Oanda, you can give them a call, actually talk to a live person. I've done this before. It's they have good customer service, which is always good when you're talking about money, right? Maybe you go to Popeyes and the customer service is not good. But when it comes to you trading and you have thousands of dollars on the line, you're going to want to make sure you can talk to the company and get answers if you have questions or you have a problem. So the fourth thing I'm going to mention can be a pro or it can be a con, depending how you look at it. And that's going to be, you don't have access to a ton of leverage. The most leverage you can get is 50 to 1. And I'll actually put a link somewhere where you can watch a video where I basically talk about you don't need more than 50 to 1 leverage to trade profitably. So I think you should go check that out if you haven't already. Because that's basically what I'm going to talk about right now. If you're a beginner especially, I think that's a pro. The fact that you don't have access to a ton of leverage, because that's usually the main reason people blow up. It's not because they lost 50 trades in a row. It's because they lost maybe 2 trades and they risked 50% per trade, or whatever it is. So I think that limited access to leverage is beneficial for most people. Almost everybody could reduce their leverage. So I don't think this is a bad thing, right? 50 to 1, it's not the end of the world. I think it's 20 to 1 or 30 to 1 for some of the riskier pairs. But like for a pair like Euro USD, you can trade 50 to 1 leverage. And that's not necessarily Oanda's rules. It's the U.S. government. U.S. government limits the amount of leverage to 50 to 1 max. So it's not really their fault. They're just following the rules. They don't want to get in trouble. So the fifth pro with Oanda is the fact that you can use a debit card to deposit and withdraw. You can use wire transfer from your bank. You don't have to use Bitcoin. That is a big thing for me, because I find, a lot of unregulated brokers, they only do use Bitcoin, which is kind of a red flag a little bit. And also there's usually fees involved. So let's say you want to deposit, I don't know, $5,000. There's going to be fees. So you're not actually going to get to trade with $5,000 if you're using Bitcoin, because a lot of times there is fees involved. Whereas Oanda, you just use your debit card. Okay, let me put in $5,000. Really easy, really simple, right? So that's another pro I like, is there's different deposit and withdrawal methods besides Bitcoin. So that's nice. All right, now let's talk about the cons. What are some of the things that I'm not a huge fan of, and some of the reasons why I'm switching over and using a different broker? And I'll tell you who that broker is at the end of the video. I'm actually working with them for some exciting things, because they're pretty open to working and really genuinely care. So I'm working with them for some exciting projects. But some cons. Con number one, and it's the biggest reason I'm leaving, the biggest con. and that's going to be spreads. Their spreads are pretty high comparatively to some other brokers. They do have high spreads, and I guess that's just the cost you pay for using a safe, reliable broker, right? That you know you can trust. And if you're a swing trader like me, I haven't really, I don't care that much. I mean, obviously I want my spreads to be as low as possible, but if my stop loss is 50 pips and my target's 200 pips, having a 4 or 5 pip spread is not the end of the world. And of course it depends on the pairs you trade. The pairs I trade, they have higher spreads in general, right? I don't trade like USD pairs, which usually have lower spreads. So naturally, they are going to be higher. But across the board, their spreads are a touch higher. And like I said, that's just the cost you're going to pay for being with a safe broker. And also, I'm a swing trader, like I said, so this doesn't affect me as much. If you're a scalper or even maybe a day trader, this might not be the broker for you, right? Because if you're scalping, 10 pips, having a 3 pip spread maybe, or even 2 pips, that's really going to eat into your profits a lot. So you might want to find a broker that has 1.5 pip or 1 pip spreads instead. So yeah, if you're a scalper, day trader, this might be a problem for you. You're just going to have to see. It also depends what pairs you trade and what time of day you trade. If you're trading, London session, it might not be a big a deal, right? Because spreads are pretty low during that time. So it just depends. Con number two, and that is going to be, again, I sort of already mentioned this, the fact you cannot trade gold, you can't trade US 30 or SPX 500 or any indice or commodity or oil, US oil. You can't trade any of that. You pretty much can only trade currencies with Oanda. That's it. So, if you're just a currency trader, like me primarily, I don't really trade gold that much or anything else, then it's not a big deal. I also have another broker I use for just stocks and investing and stuff. So if I wanted to trade like the S&P, I can just use TD Ameritrade. So, or gold or whatever, I could use them, or my new broker. So it's not a big deal if you spread around your brokers. But if you just use Oanda and you want to trade gold, then you're going to have some problems. However, that is also because of U.S. regulation. It is not Oanda's fault. They don't just hate their traders. U.S. regulations have made sure that you cannot trade gold with, or US 30 because of the high leverage, basically. In 2008, after the financial crisis, the U.S. really cracked down on financial markets. And then so that's when, leverage got reduced and all these regulations were in place. So it's unfortunate, but whatever. So with that being said, if you want to trade currencies, it's great. But if not, you might want to look elsewhere. All right, so con number 3, and I think it's the last con I have. There's not too many drawdowns, not too many drawbacks with trading with them. There's not, too many problems. The only other problem I have is with their withdraw and deposit methods. Now, if this was a con that they have a lot of methods, which is great, wire transfer, credit card, debit card, whatever. The problem is if you, let's say, deposit $5,000, whatever amount with a debit card, which actually I think the limit is $10,000 you can deposit with a debit card. Then if you want to withdraw via, let's say, bank wire transfer, you can't do it. You have to withdraw with the same method you deposited, which is kind of weird, really frustrating sometimes, because there's been times where I deposited with, like a year ago, I deposited some money, and then I took some profits out, like a few months ago, and then they were like, oh, well, some of these funds were deposited with this debit card. You need to use that one, but, I got new cards, and so I didn't have it, so I had to email them and provide proof I got new cards. It was a mess, and so that's one drawdown I have. Drawback is a big one. But if you just use, let's say, wire transfer and you only use that, then, you know, I don't think there'll be too many problems. But if you're using different methods, it can get messy. So be prepared and be aware of that. But with that being said, that is it. That is my honest review. They're a pretty great broker, US regulated, they're safe, but there is some negatives. However, being a swing trader like myself, who mainly only trades currencies, they've been great. I don't have too many complaints, and you know, the reason I'm switching over is mainly because I do want to start getting into trading those other things, potentially, you know, gold, especially gold, mainly gold, maybe some US 30 and SPX, but yeah, so I do want access to those other assets, which is why I'm switching. Also, this broker has more leverage, so, you know, I also think it'd be fun to do some account flipping, which, you know, with low leverage, it's kind of hard to do, so, you know, just for fun, or, you know, some throwaway accounts that, you know, if you over leverage and for fun, can maybe grow it exponentially. You know, you've seen, I'm sure you've seen people start $100 to $10,000. Well, yeah, that's pretty much gambling. But you know, you can't do that if you have low leverage. So that's another reason I'm switching. Third reason I'm switching is spreads. You know, I will be you know, trading a bigger account with this new broker, and so I don't want to be paying a lot extra in spread if I don't have to, right? And so this new broker, Nash Markets is the name. They're actually a new broker in general. 2020, I think it's like February is when they opened. So they are a new broker to the world and a new broker to me. And their spreads are pretty great. You know, before, if my spreads were 5 pips, my spreads are like 2 pips. Or sometimes like less than 2 pips, like 1 pip on like GJ. I mean, it's great. So they have low spreads. They're pretty great. I can deposit using Bitcoin. Not a huge fan, but I can also deposit using a debit card, which is really nice. It's one feature I really love because, like I said, I don't really like using Bitcoin with the fees and stuff like that. You're basically paying, you know, maybe 1%, 2% for no reason. You know, you could risk that on a trade instead of paying it in fees. But regardless, I hope you guys gained some value from this video. Gave you guys some insights as to whether you guys want to use Oanda or not. Yeah, I will put Oanda's website down below. I'm not affiliated with them, just so you guys have it. And I'll also put the link to my new broker, Nash Markets, down below, as well as my Instagram and my website if you do want to get training into, you know, how I use fundamental analysis in depth and my whole system, basically. With that being said, give it a huge thumbs up if you, you know, liked the video. Subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I come from a town where most of the people are so close-minded. They go into school and they work in a job, but they don't even like it. I won't be put in a box. Nobody telling me what I should rock. Nobody telling me what I should